All right, back here, Locked On Cavs podcast. Chris Manning, Evan Dammarrell. Last segment for you today. So, Evan, Malik Beasley, Utah Jazz wing. Mark Stein, the longtime NBA insider. You've read him at places like ESPN, the New York Times. He's now on Substack. This is what he wrote in his latest kind of trade rumor column that you can read at his Substack. Quote, as part of the Cavs' ongoing search for wing upgrades, league sources say they have weighed pursuing a three-way trade scenario that would land Atlanta's John Collins with the Jazz and bring Utah's Malik Beasley to Cleveland. The Jazz have a well-chronicled interest in Collins, but to this point have given the Hawks pause by seeking additional draft compensation for taking on Collins, who still has 3 seasons left on his 5-year, $125 million contract after this one. Caris LeVert's $18.8 million expiring contract is the Cavaliers' most obvious trade chip. So, Evan, you see the Malik Beasley, you read this report from Mark Stein. What do you make of Beasley as someone the Cavs could look at the trade market here?
So what Stein said does track. I think the Jazz are just an odd team where they're trying to build towards the future. They want to find more playing time for some of their younger players, and Malik Beasley has a team option. I was wrong on this one when Chris and I were talking about it earlier, but guys like him, maybe like Rudy Gay is a name kind of worth keeping your eye on as well. But like the two biggest names to emerge up to this point are Tim Hardaway Jr., which Chris Fedor and both Mark Stein have corroborated on, and then now Malik Beasley as well. Like those are kind of the two hot names to maybe circle at least when you're heading up closer to the trade deadline. This kind of goes with what I was saying before, that now that you have Garland and Mitchell and now a Ricky Rubio who's starting to come back to the floor and kind of come back to form, you don't need a guy like Caris LeVert at the end of the day who is more ball handling. And JB was asked about this pregame. We're like, hey, you have Ricky back. What do you want to do with Caris now? And like Caris LeVert's strength is him having the ball in his hand, kind of just initiating the offense, probing things. And I think the Cavs have found mixed success, like running spread pick and roll lineups with LeVert kind of being like the second or third option next to like Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland in certain sets. But it's still a learning process for Cleveland. Now you're trying to integrate a 6-man veteran and Rubio to kind of make things work again and maybe find some bench production there. But if you were to ask me, like, I think I'd prefer Malik Beasley over Tim Hardaway Jr. right now, just because of the age aspect. I think Beasley's contract or age and his contract to an extent slotted nicely with Cleveland, and also like the team option. If it doesn't work, you can always pick it up and use him as a trade chip next year, because I think there's going to be more intrigue in Beasley because of his age. But I don't know. There's also a reason why I'm podcasting and not running an NBA organization. So, but if you're asking me like 30,000 feet up, like Beasley does make a lot of sense for this team. Like, but there are some fair criticism questions with his fit, like in terms of size, defense, things like that as well. But the Cavs just need more shooting, and they just have an overabundance of non-shooting on their roster, and especially with like Kevin Love not producing and Jetty Osman not getting consistent minutes. Like you need to kind of look elsewhere to see like, okay, let's canvas the NBA. How can we get some shooting just to kind of support this really rare instance of like 4-star players on the floor under contract at the same time? Because like you need spacing to make Mobley and Allen work. And also it makes life easier for Mitchell and Garland as well, because you're not consistently asking them to bail them out with like point heroics.
So I like this in theory. I think the stretch is like obviously very necessary. LeVert doesn't totally provide that. He's the contract you would use to do this. What I tend to think that this isn't the perfect fit by any means. He is just like a so-so to below average defender. He's not going to like be the 3.5 kind of bigger wing type that I think you'd ideally want. Those guys are going to be really hard to find. All indications right now is that like Bojan Bogdanovic, Kuzma, like Harrison Barnes are either unavailable or the price is going to be out of Cleveland's range, because they sent all their cachet of picks for Donovan Mitchell, which they should have done, and that has obviously paid off. I think like this is if you're going to try to get a wing up, this is like the framework of a wing I would look at, because he's just going to provide you movement shooting, and like every team needs movement shooting, floor spacing off of the ball. Like this is a guy that has shot above 40% from 3 4 times in his career. He's at 36% this year, which is a little bit below what he has been every year for the last several years, dating back to his time in Denver and then in Minnesota and then Utah. You'd expect that to get a little bit better. Maybe corner threes get a little bit better. And he's just going to shoot a lot of them. Like he's just going to launch threes at a pretty high clip. And the Cavs need that. Like they need someone to provide stretch from the corners, from the wing, to give you a little bit more cover for a core, to just make life easier for your bigs. More importantly, like those are things you need in a wing. I think the point you made that I think is dead on accurate versus Hardaway, who would provide a lot of the same thing. And what I like about it is this. He's 4 years younger. Hardaway's 30, Beasley's 26. That matters. That does.
Yeah.
I would bet on the pre-30 guy, and on top of that, you get the team option, you pick it up, you trade for him, you're picking it up. Like if you're going to you're going to do that. What you would then do is either, okay, we ride this out with him, maybe we extend him, maybe whatever, or that becomes the trade chip. And like Hardaway Jr. would provide some of the same thing, and he has 2 years on his deal after this one, which is does he, what is the, it's the number, I don't view it as so tough because I think the package that as you go forward is once you can trade another first round pick, the idea is to take this salary and a first and cobble together whatever else you can and try to find a move that way. I think that's what you're probably doing. But in the world where like you want a little more flexibility, Beasley is going to be the attractive option. Now, what gives me pause about this being a realistic option is if you read the report, the Jazz are the team who I think John Collins is the best player of the three guys in this trade.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's pretty clear. But they want draft picks for taking on John Collins' contract. Is what if you read that report, that is what that screams to me. This seems like the trade would be the Cavs get shooting they need. Atlanta saves money because they get Karis LeVert's expiring contract and get off John Collins, who they've wanted to trade it for about 1,000 years at this point. And it's just and Hawks are weird. Shout out Brad Rowland. Check out Locked on Hawks. And Utah gets John Collins, but they want the picks from Atlanta. The Cavs, if they really want to get this done, have to just trade seconds or other expiring salaries to kind of give these teams salary relief. That's all they can offer right now. Is that enough to get Beasley when I could imagine him having other suitors? I could imagine New Orleans being we have 80 bajillion first round picks. Let's trade Devontae Graham and another salary and let's bring him in and get more shooting on the wing. You get the Grizzlies have other picks. They have salaries that could cash in for a shooter like this if they wanted to give them more stretch around Ja and JJJ and Bane. This will be really, I think, relying on the Cavs getting in the right conversation and working with teams I worked with before to find a deal, and it just kind of breaking right in their favor. They have a very hard cap on what they could offer for Beasley or anything else that they might want.
Yeah, that's the issue of itself too. It's just trying to acquire Beasley is going to have to work with the Jazz, which the Cavs have a very good working relationship with. They got Donovan Mitchell and the fact that the Jordan Clarkson trade and the Kyle Korver trade and there's countless others as well when it comes to Sacramento sent them George Hill, but either way, they were able to salvage their season and jettison Jay Crowder out there too. The Cavs have a good relationship with the Utah Jazz in terms of working with them. It's just the issue, like Chris said, it's not just a singular or a 3-team trade in this instance, where these are the only 3 teams that are negotiating trade talks in terms of maybe Malik Beasley at the end of the day. The Cavs are competing with every team in the NBA. Heck, even Atlanta could just say, hey, we'd rather have Malik Beasley. If we include John Collins, maybe they can punt one of their younger players off the back end of the rotation too, because the Hawks have a lot of young first rounders on their end of things that they just aren't finding playing time for right now too. So it's tough. It's tricky. I was talking to people who cover the Mavericks a little bit more closely. I think there are some legs to the Tim Hardaway Jr. deal. It's just tough if you're Dallas because you're not getting a ton of salary relief. You're getting a little bit of tax relief at the end of the day if you trade Tim Hardaway Jr. for Karis LeVert. Let's say you remove LeVert, Christian Wood, and I'm forgetting the other name, or Maxi Kleber right now, I believe. And the Mavericks still don't have a ton of salary cap to work with, but they still have a boatload of picks to go and acquire Luka. It's just maybe they, again, like you said, the Cavs can attach a tangible pick, THJ. Maybe the Mavericks step back a little bit as well and say okay, maybe we wait this out a year, attach a couple of these first rounders and use Hardaway's salary along with others to go get an actual starter play next to Luka. I don't know. It's going to be tough. I think the Cavs are going to be forever the bridesmaid, never the bride in a lot of these trades too, just because they emptied the clip to get Donovan Mitchell. And at the end of the day, we talk about this a lot. Cleveland's big move was getting Donovan Mitchell over the summer. Now they're trying to just work within the margins of what they have to upgrade some of the flaws and issues on this roster. It's just tough when you have to compete with every team in the NBA and not everyone's exclusively negotiating with you and you alone.
Just true or false, Beasley would be an upgrade on what they have in the wing now.
True.
Okay, I agree. I think he's what I think is interesting is that he'd be kind of a Jetty Osman spot upgrade. And I wonder how Bickerstaff would sort of feel about that type of player.
If you look at
he's not a good defender. He's not a good defender.
No, he's not. If you look through the lens of just he provides you shooting, which is such a premium commodity no matter what the NBA, that warms me up more than just if you factor in the age aspect and then the contract logistics of it as well. I think if you're Cleveland, like you just don't rest on getting Malik Beasley. Maybe you try to expand this trade in. Like, yeah, Rudy Gay is tapped out physically, but like that's a bigger wing and a strong locker room presence too that you can kind of have as like more quality depth. And he at least provides you more shooting because you have to find some type of upgrades. And again, work within the margins. You're not going to make like some big splashy move and go get like the best small forward in the NBA. Like Cavs aren't trading Evan Mobley to get LeBron James at the end of the day. So they have to kind of figure out the logistics of it. And also there's a very real and plausible scenario where the Cavs kind of stand pat. Maybe they make a small move and use that last roster spot, kind of explore 10-day signings and bring in like a veteran player to kind of support what they're working with. So we'll see. It's going to be a mad dash. I also think teams are kind of very prone to make bold proclamations now and then walking back those claims closer to the deadline itself, just because like they need to make a deal in certain scenarios or just doesn't come to fruition. It's always constantly evolving. Nothing is ever really static when it comes to this stuff. Like again, Donovan Mitchell could have been a Knick. I think a lot of us expected him to be a New York Knick, but here he is, locked on Cavaliers, and we're talking about him instead.
I mean, I literally think we did a podcast that was like, "Hey, there's this report that the Cavs are in on him, like, but like we don't really think there's like a lot to this." And then it was like a week later, it's like he's a Cleveland
Boy,
Cavalier. Like
I was golfing and wrong.
Look, being wrong is part of doing this whole thing. So it's what it is. All right, that though is going to be it for this episode of Locked On Cavs. Thanks again to Jake Stevens for producing this one. Please subscribe, rate, and review 5 stars only if you've not already, or please give us a thumbs up on YouTube. And subscribe to that channel. Help us get to 3,000. We are almost to 3,000 subs. Help us get there. And thanks again for making us your first listen every day. Now make your second listen game to game NBA. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NBA with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NBA. That's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts.